Tom, appreciate you joining today. As the way getting started, tell us a little bit more about yourself and your story.
Yeah, good morning and good to be here. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Yeah, my name's Tom Kucher. I'm the head of sales at Minnesota Medical Technologies. It's a startup company based in Shortville, Minnesota. Spent my entire career in medical sales. Um, it's funny as I do a lot of mentoring for people just coming out of college and, kind of where they're looking at. And for me, my career started off as basically I didn't have any real plan. Didn't have any, I apologize. I didn't have any real strong strategic plan. I was just a sales rep trying to hit my monthly number, try to maximize my comp plan. And it was really when I ended up at this company called Rochester Medical, a company in the middle of a cornfield in Minnesota that no one knew about, no one had ever heard about, where I kind of look at that as that pivotal moment in my career, where I kind of found the right place at the right time, the right culture, the right boss. Was fortunate enough to get promoted into leadership. Um, Hired when I did, I built a team from the ground up. So literally I was the first person on the team, hired a team, did not know what I was doing at all when it came to interviewing and hiring people. I literally bought a book at Barnes and Noble about what questions you should ask and did the statistical thing, which was I hired two people, and one person was the right hire, and one person was not the right hire. So I was 50-50. So they talk about kind of flipping a coin, and that was my accuracy. So I've been fortunate enough to spend my time in small public, large public, ginormous public, and now with a small private startup. So I've really been able to experience the spectrum of size companies and different cultures in medical device.
That's great. I definitely have some follow-up questions from that one. Specifically, you've worked at some bigger companies, you've worked at some smaller companies, you're at a startup now, MMT. Could you share a little bit about MMT if you want, just what you guys do and perhaps who you help? And then what are some of the differences between the startup versus the big corporate life in sales? Because there are some pretty big differences, I think.
There sure are. So Minnesota Medical Technologies, we are a medical device manufacturer. We're based in Stewartville, Minnesota. We just launched a new insert. It's a device for people suffering with accidental bowel leakage, which is actually a huge issue in the throughout the world. They estimate between 8 and 12% of the population suffers with this. Highly unmet need. Most people suffer in silence. We just got our FDA clearance late last year. We just raised some money here, and we're just now really commercially launching the device here in the U.S. It has been available in Europe for the last 5 years through with a private label distribution agreement. But as far as you know, startup life compared to big public corporation, we just had our first sales training meeting, and I used a slide to kind of try to help set expectations with everyone to kind of maybe in a humorous way, try to kind of demonstrate the differences. And one part of the slide, I had a really big cruise ship, and the other side was a jet ski. And it's not that one is better than the other. They're just very different. And that a cruise ship has tons of resources, all kinds of amenities. It's a big, slow moving, slow turning organization where a jet ski is bare bones, right? There is no bar, there is no buffet. It is you on a jet ski, but it's fast and turns on a dime. And so, whereas at a big public organization, if you need something done, you need information, you need resources, typically it's readily available. There is an expert there to help you with your compensation planning. There is someone there to help you with getting reimbursement or whatever it may be. At Minnesota Medical Technologies, there is no one else, right? You really have to figure it out yourself. And, and it can be uncomfortable, but it can also be a great learning experience. And you really do gain a lot of new skills and probably respect for the people who can specialize in those skills.
I love that analogy. I might steal that from you, but it's so true. It's there is no right or wrong answer. I think if you're younger in your career, it might be better to work for one of those big companies because you get the structure, the foundation, the training. Things are, I don't want to say easier, but you have more resources. And then, startup, it's going to be the opposite. So it just depends on the personality. And but they're not the same though. I think people think just because they had success at a big company, maybe they can go to a startup, and you don't have all that marketing, you don't have all that support, so it can be a little bit different. You might have to be a full cycle sales rep. On that note, real quick, because my audience, a lot of different industries in there. It tends to be industrial manufacturing, some med device, but a lot of people want to break into med device. Everyone loves to break into med device, but
Oh
it's
yeah.
actually, from my experience, because I worked at Stryker for a little bit, it's really hard to get in, first off, and it's one of the more challenging professions. I think it's one of, I think medical device reps are the best salespeople I've been around because they have to do all these different things, and I have so much respect. But can you talk a little bit about just medical device and, should, everyone wants to break into it, but is it as easy as it sounds and all that type of stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think one is, I always kind of talk about healthcare sales and the fact that there's such a huge spectrum of getting into medical sales and what you do. I mean, there's pharmaceutical sales, there's med device, there's capital equipment, there's more procedure based, there is hospital based sales, physician office based sales, there's diagnostic. So there's this huge umbrella of different, very different types of segments in the space. Um, and just like that, there's a vast spectrum of companies, right? From size and style and culture and all those types of things. So yeah, it can be challenging to get in. It can be challenging to work in. I mean, it's, access is difficult. The expectations are high, but it can also be really, really rewarding. And so I think medical sales in general attracts people for a number of reasons. I think obviously one is income, the ability to go out there and make a really great living if you're good at it. I think is very attractive. I think career opportunities. I can't tell you how many people I know who started their career as a sales rep and who are now a CEO. Right, lots of career development, lots of career opportunities, the ability to go out and compete on the highest stage, right? With, kind of the best, kind of, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And, you're competing against some really top-notch professionals out there. You're working side by side with doctors and nurses. And if you can do all those things and at the same time help to save lives or help to improve the quality of life for people, it really kind of checks a lot of boxes for people. And the fact that they can go out there, have a great career, make good money, and feel good about what they're doing.
Very well said. It's not easy, but it's very gratifying. And some of the smartest people I've ever met have been from med device and all those things that you mentioned. So I 100% agree. A little bit more about just culture and your team. I know culture is pretty important to you. When you're hiring folks, it could be with your current company or in the past. What are some of the things that you look for with those sales reps that separates them from others out there? Is there anything that you really focus on with culture and who you like to hire?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the culture piece is probably tougher to maybe uncover in the interview process. What I found now is because if you go back 15, 16, 17 years ago, I knew that it was like where I was at Rochester Medical and Bard, like the culture was really special. It took me a long time to kind of actually define that. And it kind of happened organically by, I think trying to hire people who I think fit into that. But it took me a long time to define it. Now what I do is I actually, when I'm interviewing people and talking to people about joining the company, is I tell them exactly who we are as a culture, right? And because I want to make sure that not only can you come perform here, but you understand the culture and what's expected. Because it only takes one person to ruin that. As far as what I look for in salespeople, I'm looking typically for characteristics and traits, right? And it is some type of track record of success. And it does not mean, and I've hired people who have 10, 15, 20 years experience, and I've hired people basically right out of college. And, so You have to look at them very different. I'll give you an example. When had made a move where we were hiring more associate type level reps, and a manager made a comment to me that, hey, well, we're not going to be able to hire people who are as good. I say, no, 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 no. Like, that is not true. Like, we are not lowering our talent bar here. Like, we are going to maintain it and continue to try to lift that up. But we're going to have to take some more risks, right? Because, and every hire is a risk. There is no grand slam, no home run hire, because every job, every company, there's so many variables there. But I'm looking for track record of success, right? Whether it's been in their career as a salesperson, whether it's academics, whether it's athletics, whether it's someone who has worked at a grocery store all through high school, all through college. They've demonstrated that they're a hard worker, they've got grit, they've got internal drive. So it's not always, hey, you've been in medical sales or in sales and you've been a P Club winner. You really have to look, again, define what is your success profile, right? What are some of those common traits that your top people share? And then look for those traits in others. And again, it shows up in different ways. It might not just be sales experience. It could be someone who's 10 years in the military and they're transitioning out, but they've got all those characteristics and traits that you find so valuable and honestly hard to find. You can train anyone to go call in a doctor's office and sell, but you can't tell them, you can't teach them to have drive. You can't teach them to work hard. All those little things.
I think what you were describing there was that intrinsic motivation. It's hard to maybe get that in one interview. And then you also said have the ideal candidate profile before going into it, so you know what those traits are. That's key too, because what I find a
Yep.
lot is, let's say you were interviewing me and you're like, well, I like Dustin. Dustin seems pretty good, but does that mean he's the right fit for the role? A lot of times people just hire based off liking people and not all those characteristics you're talking about. So I 100% agree on that.
And I'll just so a good example where we were interviewing somebody and he worked at our organization in an associate level role in a different division. And he was interviewing for a role with us to come into a full line territory manager role. And the one question he couldn't answer is, why did he want this job? And I just told him, I said, listen, man, I said, you're great. You're going to get promoted. I promise you that. But what you need to decide, I can't decide this for you, but what you need to decide is, are you going after this job because you really want it and you're really excited about it, or just because you're going for the next job, which is the promotion? And I kind of poked him in the chest a little bit and pushed back, not in a mean way, right? But I want people to make the right decision for themselves, right? Like, that's part of my interview process and style. Is there's supposed to be a two-way street. I'm trying to find the right person for us. I want you to find the right organization, the right fit for you. And so I pushed back on him a little bit in the sense, and then he ultimately withdrew from the process. And I wasn't disappointed. Like when there's great people who rescind, like if they withdraw from the process, I always want to look internally, like, did we do something wrong? Did we provide a poor experience? What can we do differently? But ultimately, if they decided that this is not the right role or the right fit for them, I want them to make that decision.
That's great. No, I mean, if you're not passionate about the role, if you don't know that why, that's probably one of the biggest potential red flags if you can't answer that. So I
Yeah.
100% agree. A couple more things on sales and just how it's been changing, and then we'll wrap it up here soon. With sales in general, I feel like it is a roller coaster, as you talked about earlier. The past 5 years have certainly changed substantially with what happened with COVID, especially in your space, but just so many changes, and I feel like you have to just keep adapting. But what have you seen that's been like the biggest differences now versus 5 or 10 years ago, like going to market? Is it harder to get in the hospitals? Is it so much noise out there because of AI? Is it, really hard to get someone to answer the phone? I mean, what's changed now versus in the past from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, access has always been difficult. It's at all-time high as far as being challenging to get in. And again, if I can just give you an example of pre-COVID versus post-COVID. I could walk into any VA hospital in the country and go talk to somebody, and now that's not the case. So very different. Um,
Like Fort
so
Knox to get
access
in
is
there now. It's like Fort Knox to get in there, right?
they're well trained. You go show up at a clinic desk, and they're like the first thing they do is point to the sign of about the vendor credentialing, and you better be signed in and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, access is really difficult. I think, um, there's so much coming at people all day, right? Whether it's in your LinkedIn box, whether it's your email, whatever it may be. And so I think attention is really difficult. It's really difficult to get attention. Um, and to me, it continues to emphasize the need of just focus on how you hire and making sure you hire the right people for your organization, and focus on always raising the bar up. So yeah, I just think people are bombarded with, every medium of getting sales tactics. And I think a lot of people just kind of shut down, and they kind of bury themselves in their work. I mean, I listen, I think about it all the time in the sense of, we're going and knocking on doors and showing up at doctors' offices or hospitals all the time. And I just think about how annoyed I get when I'm sitting here, I'm in my home office, and someone comes knocking on my door because they're pressure washing a house down the street, or they're cutting down trees down the street, and they're here to give me their business card and sell it. I'm like, oh my God, like, you just interrupted my day. And they're just trying to do their job, right? And that's what we're trying to do too. But it's never been easy. It's at an all-time level of challenging. Now, again, the upside of it is I think people are more apt to do virtual meetings and virtual calls. I've done a number of virtual in-services on the West Coast without getting on an airplane. So that's the upside of COVID, in the sense that, where yes, it's challenging to get in front of people, but sometimes it's a little easier in the fact that you don't always have to hop on a plane and go fly several hours for an hour meeting. You can do it in the comforts of your home or wherever it is. And so that allows you to be a lot more effective, and efficient with your time.
And you're spot on. I mean, I think it is an all-time high of people getting pitched. You think of the buyers. You always have to put yourself in the buyer's perspective. If you're a C-suite at a hospital, whatever it is, they're getting hit from every angle possible. LinkedIn messages, people trying to get in there in person, phone calls, and it's overwhelming. It's hard from that standpoint. It's hard to know what's good, bad, indifferent.
Yep.
It's all just noise. Nor do you even look at it. And you made a great point. If you're a salesperson, when you walk on a car lot to go buy something at Toyota, whatever, do you avoid that sales rep, or do you go talk to them? Because to your point, knocking on the door. So, I mean, you have to think about it. Or, if you get a cold call, do you answer it, or you just press the red button and go straight to voicemail? So I think it is hard. You still have to put the effort in, and you have to do the activity. But if you can build up that know, like, and trust that you were talking about, be patient, play the long game. I know that's very cliche, but you have to find a way to be different and stand out. And usually that takes patience and not pouncing. I think everyone now, they pounce right away. So when they do get opportunity, they pounce too fast, and that ricochets what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I mean, people get through, like, listen, people get through to me on LinkedIn, right? Like, I mean, they're obviously, there are people that can get through on LinkedIn that done something differently that get me to engage with them. Now there's a number of times where I get a message on LinkedIn, and it's like, you don't know anything about me or the company I work for. Like this pitch is like coming out of like outer space. It's so off the mark. It's not even funny. And so those are just, you never, so I think it does give people the opportunity to be creative and be different. And I think also you see where people are just lazy, and they're probably copy and pasting a message, hundreds of messages every day. And you're like, they don't know anything about me. This, like, I don't even know how this resonates with what I do. It doesn't.
exactly. Yeah, I think you got to have a multi approach depending on what industry you're in. And I use LinkedIn quite a bit, but I've been very consistent for 4 or 5 years now. So it builds up over time. So I think there's just a right and wrong way to do things. A couple more things on that. So the other thing we usually talk about is just AI. I know everyone's excited to hear AI again because it's every day, all the time, constantly changing, and it's overwhelming. The reason I bring it up because I feel like it's overwhelming right now from a sales rep perspective, from a sales leader perspective. But at the same time, most CEOs are telling their teams, hey, go find some AI stuff, be more efficient, sell more, be more productive. Everyone's talking about it, but it's very chaotic. It's intense. It changes a lot. So what's your view on it? Do you think there are ways that it can help yourself or your sales team, or do you think, medical device might be a little bit behind some other industries as far as bringing it into day to day? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the first thing is just embracing it and the fact that hey, listen, AI, you can't go a day if you're listening to a podcast or the news or reading stuff. I mean, AI is front and center each and every day. So I think the first thing is it's like anything, right? I mean, to me, it's not a dirty word. Yes, are there scary things about AI? 100%. But I know I would tell you, I think I probably use AI more every day. And and I think it's just how you use it. Again, I'm probably just at the tip of the iceberg. I'm probably pretty illiterate from an AI perspective, but it helps me do so much just right now, right? And sometimes it's like when you've got writer's block on sending an email and you don't like the way a sentence sounds or whatever it may be, and you just use ChatGPT or whatever it may be to help you rewrite it. You got a slide deck and you're like, hey, I want to turn this into, kind of more of a like 2-page study guide for the reps. And so they're not looking through 60 slides. They've got a 2-page thing. It'll build that for you. Working on a script for a 3D animation video. And I'm like, help me say this, and it's real. And then sometimes what you get, again, the other part of it is taking it and not just accepting what it gives you, but it just helps you maybe move in the right direction faster. Maybe it gives you something perfect, but a lot of times it's like, well, I don't like this, and this doesn't really sound like me, so I'm going to take this and kind of re-edit it. But it really kind of helps you on your pathway. I mean, it like I said, every day it helps me work smarter. It helps me work more efficiently. And just some of these things like that are could be a drag on my time and my mental capacity helps me get through it really quick. I mean, even things as simple as a job description, it really helps you at least kind of build the foundation of it.
No doubt. And I think you're spot on from a sales leader, sales rep perspective. It can be scary. It's overwhelming, but technology's undefeated. Like you can't fight what's happening and you got to figure out a way to embrace it if possible. So I think that in the future, the sales leaders and the reps that are going to continue to stay on top and maybe do even better, they're going to figure out how to use AI to their advantage to
Yeah.
give them more time back. Like what you're describing is just giving yourself time back with admin related stuff, more manual tasks like the PowerPoint, the prep, the follow up. That stuff isn't a good use of, I wouldn't call it revenue generating activities. So if
Right.
you can take that and automate it with something, whatever AI tool it is, and then that gives you more energy, you're probably going to present better on your next meeting because you didn't have to get bogged down by doing all this manual stuff. That's how I look at it. So if people are already good at selling, they want more time in front of the customer, that's what you should use AI for. And all the other stuff is great too, but that's where I would start and just keep it very
Yeah.
simple. What is bogging me down? What's holding me back that I hate doing? That's manual. That's what I would try to automate.
Yeah. And there's a lot of technology with diagnostics in the sense of AI basically being able to identify things, more consistently and effectively than the human eye does. So, I mean, I think we're at the tip of the iceberg with AI, and it'll be fun to watch. Yes, there are, like with any technology, there's always the risks of it. But you're not going to put the toothpaste back in at this point.
Exactly. There you go. Well, appreciate you joining, Tom. One last question for you as we head out here is like if you had just have one piece of advice for yourself or for listeners out there that you've learned over the years being in sales and a leader, what would that advice be?
Oh, geez. I think it's hard to narrow down to one piece of advice. It's such a broad topic. I guess I'll just say a couple things, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
A, don't try to reinvent the wheel, right? If you're a new rep, my number one piece of advice is you should be making the top performers your go-to people, right? Figure out like what do they do don't too many people try to figure out the hard way. And there's a lot of people with a lot of insights, a lot of knowledge, and a lot of people are happy to share that. I'd say from a sales leadership perspective, to me, one thing I'm really passionate about is people and culture. And I don't think there is anything more important than for a company or have a greater impact, either good or bad, is your people and your culture. And those things are kind of like DNA. They're double helix, right? They're really intertwined to me. So, that to me would be the best thing. And then I guess for those who are trying to get into any type of industry, whether it's medical sales or technology or whatever it is, um, really good networking is probably going to yield your greatest return on your investment of time versus just applying on job boards and LinkedIn or wherever it may be. Really just reaching out to people and asking for their help. I think anybody who's had any success in their career, they've had people help them along the way. And a lot of people are always looking to help pay it forward. So, but you've got to ask. You've got to go out there and reach out. People aren't going to come tap you on the shoulder. You really have to tap people on the shoulder and reach out and ask for help. But there's a lot of people willing to do that.
Love that. And that's so true about the top reps. You'd be shocked how many new people don't talk to the top reps and get their feedback and understand what they're doing instead of reinventing the wheel. It's such a low-hanging fruit that doesn't happen. I don't know if they're intimidated, but most of those successful reps would share their story if you bring it up the right way. So I 100% agree.
Yeah, when I'm talking, especially when back when I managed a pretty large sales organization, and I'm talking to maybe people who are struggling, and I'm like, well, who else do you talk to? And 9 times out of 10, they're talking to other people who are struggling, and it's like, no, well, you're talking to the wrong people. First of all, if you're asking questions and getting advice, you're getting you're getting the wrong answers and the wrong advice. You should be talking to the person who wins President's Club every year. And like I said, most of those people will share all their secret sauce, right? Because they want to see other people do well, but they still believe that, hey, I'm going to give you all my secrets, but you're still not going to beat me because you're still not going to work as hard as me, and they have that confidence in themselves. But most people are all like, even in doctors or whatever it is, asking them questions, they always want, a lot people like to teach, they like to teach people what they know. And sales reps are no different.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you joining, Tom. We will talk again soon.
Thanks, Dustin. It was a pleasure to be here.